DISC-4 program. During the next hour, our team at CIRM will provide an overview and answer questions related to our newest CIRM program initiative, the ReMIND-L program. As most of you already know, ReMIND stands for Research Using Multidisciplinary Innovative Approaches in Neurological Disorders, and L is for large collaborative projects. This is a pilot for this program structure, and its first implementation will be focusing in neuropsychiatric disease mechanisms. Next slide. This program, as many of you know, is part of CIRM's neuroscience strategy, and it has been developed in the context of our mission statement, and it maps out and integrates within the first theme of our mission, our strategic plan, which is advancing world-class science. Next slide. This slide is to present today's panelists. Most of the presentation will be provided by my colleague, Dr. Chanlek Tang, who is a senior science officer in the scientific programs and education team, and who has been co-leading and also instrumental in the development of this program with me. Also on this webinar, we have Dr. Hayley Lam, who is Associate Director of Portfolio Development and Review, who will be answering any questions related to the review process. And April Reinhardt, who is a Grants Management Officer in our CIRM team, and who will be answering any questions related to the grants management process. Next slide. Just as a bit of background, the ReMIND program falls within the purview of the Scientific Programs and Education team, which is pictured here. And we are also joined by Dr. Sarah Taylor, who is a project manager in the Scientific Programs and Education team, and that will help with the Q&A session. And in the background of all of these, I would like to acknowledge also Doug Guillen's help in running this webinar. This webinar, just for information, is being recorded, and we will post it to the CIRM YouTube channel as well as in the ReMIND page. There is a page in our website that's solely destined for information about this program, and the slides will be posted in that page as well. Next slide. For context, the ReMIND program falls within the discovery pillar of CIRM programs, and it's aligned more with the foundational knowledge basic research part of our discovery pillar. Next slide. As many of you that have been following the development of this initiative, the vision of this program has been informed by multiple stakeholder discussions over the last 3 years. And the goal of this program reflects the incorporation of all the major takeaways of all these multiple stakeholders over that period of time. And that the objective of the program is to accelerate the discovery of mechanisms underlying neuro diseases, but in this case, neuropsychiatric disease mechanisms, and leading to the identification and validation of novel targets and biomarkers, with the ultimate goal to provide new avenues that do not exist right now and rigorous foundations for future translational and clinical investigations that are very needed. The specific objectives to achieve the goal could be summarized in 3 main points. The first one is to accelerate foundational scientific understanding of neuropsychiatric disease mechanisms, or the development of relevant transformative tools and technologies that will help accelerate this understanding. The second is to catalyze multidisciplinary innovation, attract new talent and new ideas into neuropsychiatric research, and seed new partnerships. So this is the reason why we have these collaborative, large, multidisciplinary teams that we are asking for. And then the third one would be to drive open and collaborative science by leveraging CIRM-funded and externally funded infrastructure for data, resources, and knowledge sharing. And this all falls together into this open collaborative science. Next slide. The overall vision that we have for this program and how this program could lead to further accelerate discovery of existing or novel mechanisms for neuropsychiatric disorders is to become part of a collaborative open science community the way we are envisioning and enabling this is by establishing collaborative networks of multidisciplinary research teams through new funding structures that are complementary to the current ones, such as the CIRM Discovery Stage Awards, that is Zero, and that is 2 Quest Awards, and furthermore, leveraging CIRM-funded infrastructure, such as the shared resource labs, data coordinating and management, which is something that we are developing at the moment. Is always conditioned on approval by our board, but it's something that's coming as well. And other resources, such as the ones that we can leverage from external consortia. I'll now lead to Dr. Chan-Lek Tang, who will introduce today's agenda and will provide an in-depth overview of the program and the application components. Chan, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rosa, for the introduction. This is just a summary of the agenda for the rest of today's presentation. I will walk through the program overview and application components, and then hand over to my colleague Haley to walk through the review process and criteria. And then we will follow this hopefully with 15 to 20 minutes left at the end with a Q&A session that will be moderated by Sarah. Just a quick note here, if you have any questions, just feel free to enter them in the chat during the presentation, and we'll try to address them during the Q&A. All right. So just before I go further, and in case you need to drop off early, I just wanted to re-highlight what Rosa just said about the ReMIND webpage. This would be serving as a central location for award information, the recording of today's webinar, slide decks and FAQs from today's webinar as well. So check this website for any further updates in the coming weeks. So we'll all be familiar now with the basic structure of the ReMIND-L award, which supports large collaborative, multidisciplinary, multi-investigational projects focused on the study of neuropsychiatric disorders. This is a 4-year award, a maximum duration of 4 years, with a baseline support of direct project costs up to $8 million in total. With the provision of matching funds, this could potentially go up to $10 million in total over 4 years, and we will come back to the matching funds mechanism in a little bit. CIRM has a target of funding 6 such awards in 2024. So what are we looking for with ReMIND-L? These are some of the high-level outcomes that we expect from each awarded project. We are primarily looking for studies that would further our biological mechanistic understanding of neuropsychiatric disorders, address major bottlenecks in the study of neuropsychiatric disorders, understand these diseases in the context of diverse human populations, including ancestral diversity, and then identify new ways to improve the health outcomes of patients with these diseases through new targets, therapeutic strategies, or biomarkers. So applications must aim to achieve at least one, but ideally multiple of these outcomes by the end of the award. And what do we mean by neuropsychiatric diseases? This is the passage taken from the RFA itself. So neuropsychiatric disorders include the indications listed here: schizophrenia, bipolar, major depressive disorder, PTSD, ADHD, OCD, anxiety disorders, mood disorders, intellectual disability, autism spectrum disorders, and substance use disorders. And clearly there is, this also includes neuropsychiatric disorders with neurodevelopmental origin, including autism spectrum disorders. So I do want to note that studies focus on other CNS indications, including neurodegeneration, pain, or brain cancers, are not within scope for this award. In the case where applicants can make the case that the proposal is focused on neuropsychiatric mechanisms in the context of other CNS disorders, they could be eligible, but we consider this quite unlikely, especially as a standalone topic. So in any case, we do strongly encourage you to speak to us before proceeding any further, if that's what you're hoping to come in with. And one other topic here, one other question that is frequently raised is, should we focus on one indication or try to understand several neuropsychiatric diseases in terms of the common mechanisms? And the short answer is yes to both. We consider them both equally valid strategies to putting together an application. It just depends on the theme and the kind of technologies that you're hoping to bring to the proposal. So the next slide is around team eligibility requirements. So the applicant organization must be a California-based nonprofit or for-profit research institution. We require a single principal investigator to serve as the primary administrative contact for CIRM and to manage the overall team. But the core team itself must compose a minimum of 5 investigators, so 5 group leaders, with the 1 principal investigator and 4 or more co-investigators, with the minimum percentage effort that's listed here. So 15% for the PI and 10% each for each of the co-Is. In addition, we are asking for other personnel requirements. So at least 1 member of the overall team must have relevant clinical expertise. 1 member must have relevant computational biology expertise, and 1 data project manager with at least 15% effort devoted to this project. So these 3 requirements can be key personnel and do not need to be also they do not need to be also the core team members. Just to expand on this a little bit, the clinical expert should provide should provide necessary perspective for future translatability of the findings that you'd uncover, and should be aware of the bottlenecks in translation, so be familiar with current and investigational therapies, be able to draw in the participation of patient groups and patient-derived data and resources. And the computational expertise and data sharing manager is a requirement. Given the high likelihood, we think that the awarded teams will generate a lot of data across multiple modalities, and we want to ensure that teams have the necessary experience and expertise to manage and share that data and derive new insights from them. All right, so that's for the team. The next section is also an important one around proposal eligibility. So there are 3 proposal eligibility requirements. The first section is pretty straightforward. So we have to certify that the proposal addresses a research bottleneck or knowledge gap in the understanding of neuropsychiatric diseases. The second is to ensure to include studies that employ stem cells or genetic research as part of the central approach or hypothesis, to ensure that this aligns with CIRM's mission. And we have a very specific definition for genetic research here. So this refers to research that alters the genomic sequences of cells or introduces or directly manipulates nucleic acids, for example, ASOs or RNAs in cells. We do fully expect proposals to include other approaches that do not involve stem cells or genetic research as well. We ask you to identify these subcomponents and provide a justification, especially describe how they complement or promote the validity of the central approach that has the stem cell or genetic component. The third basket is speaking to the fact that we are emphasizing human-centered approaches, including the use of human stem cell models, human patient samples, human data. But we're cognizant of the importance of animal models that are still essential for some use cases, for example, tissue organization and animal behavior. So we ask that you identify the use of non-human models when they're included in your proposal, provide a justification for their use, and describe how you plan to validate such findings in a human model or a human context or human tissues. And we will come back to this proposal eligibility requirements in the online portal section when we get to the application section of the webinar in a second. So next, I wanted to touch quickly on the matching funds mechanism. The matching funds mechanism aims to incentivize collaborations that could leverage external resources. So as a further incentive to bring in these kind of collaborations, an additional $500,000 a year can be requested on top of the baseline amount if an equal or larger amount of matching funds is provided annually. So the requirements are that, as you said, the matching funds must be contributed evenly across the award period, must be used for specific project-related expenses in the eligible expenses category down here. And you must provide evidence of the commitments of funds at the pre-funding administrative review once the application has been awarded. So these funds can come from any non-CIRM source, either California or non-California with funder approval, and could include in-kind contributions as well. So third-party subcontracts, as long as you justify the value here. So eligible expenses include these four here: salary for full-time personnel, research supplies and resources uniquely dedicated to this project, use of facilities with existing recharge rates, and third-party subcontracts. So it doesn't include things like indirects, for example, or the purchase of equipment that's not dedicated to this project alone. And you'll have a chance to address matching funds in several sections in the application as well. So this is a abbreviated illustrative list of the types of activities CIRM will fund under the ReMIND-L award. You can see the RFA for a more detailed description of each of these categories. I share this here really to emphasize the multidisciplinary approach that we're looking to encourage here, which could include multiple components. So we're looking to support the application and innovation in stem cell modeling of neuropsychiatric disorders, understanding disease mechanisms in the context of diverse ancestral backgrounds, discovery and validation of new targets and biomarkers and therapeutic strategies, as well as more exploratory technology development elements that could be included in the overall project. One thing I do want to clarify here as well is around this phrase genetic research. So I want to emphasize that the award aims to support studies that identify and characterize genes or loci that contribute to disease risk, progression, or resilience. And all of that is within scope and encouraged, and you can use any approach that you think is necessary for that. We do want to make a slight distinction here from what we call genetic research in the eligibility requirement that I talked about 2 slides ago, which is really related to gene editing or nucleic acid introduction into cells. So both are allowable, both are encouraged, but only one can be used to fulfill eligibility requirements. I hope that that's clear. Okay, so right. CIRM will also fund activities that are used to promote DEI in the conduct of the study. So activities associated with data sharing, partnering activities with patient-centered organizations, activities to communicate your research to the wider public, including websites, as well as travel and accommodation expenditures that are associated with the attendance of the ReMIND program conferences that we will organize in the coming years. For this award, CIRM does support the identification, testing, and validation of new therapeutic hypotheses, new targets, and new biomarkers, including screening of 2 compounds, for example, and limited proof of concept studies. What we will not support is therapeutic or other commercial development activities that are found supported by some of our other mechanisms like this too. So that includes IND enabling studies, lead optimization and selection of development candidate type activities that will not be supported here, and activities that are already paid for by an existing or future CIRM award, so will also not be supported. All right, so that kind of concludes the overview of the award itself. I'll take a quick pause here and see if any of my colleagues wants to jump in to clarify any of the points that I just went through. If not, I'll go on to the next section. All right. So the next section, I will guide you through the mechanics of the application process itself. To start your applications, you will go to grants.cirm.ca.gov to register and log into your account. And you will see a list of open programs, one of which will say Disc 4, ReMIND-L. And you can click on this to start your application. And once you get to that application page, you will see this. So there's the online section with the following subcategories. All of them will say incomplete at first, and once you fill them in with all the necessary elements, they will change to complete. And then there is a upload section that has both required and optional uploads. So we'll just go a little deeper here. So this is the upload section. The required uploads are shown here. They say in the status incomplete at first. So you must use the provided templates and then upload your files. It would turn to complete. And then there are also optional, uploads like letters of support, IP, and MTAs that you can also share with us if you like. So I wanted to do a quick dive in 5 parts of the overall application that could benefit from a little further explanation. So this following section is a little dense by design, and you can, the thought is you can use this slide deck or this webinar to guide you through the application process later on. And again, the deck will be available on our ReMIND website, so you can use it to work through your application section. The first section is the eligibility section online. This section must be completed first because only when you complete it will the other sections become visible. It's pretty straightforward. Most of these are certifications that you check to make sure that you fulfill the requirements. There are 2 areas which require text input corresponding to the 2 eligibility requirements we discussed earlier. So identifying and justifying any project components that have no stem cell or genetic research elements, why you're using them, how they support the underlying central approach. The second basket is to identify and justify the use of any non-human models, and then how you plan to validate those findings in human models or human tissues. So there is a 1,500 character limit, so you can be brief, you can use bullet points. And one question that came up several times is the xenograft of human cells or organoids into rodent models is considered a human model in our mind, so that doesn't require any further justification. Under key personnel, there is a section that where you can enter the information for the principal investigator and the authorized organizational official for your institution. And then the next line here under key personnel, this is where you'll fill in the rest of your team, of your core team. At minimum, you'll need to enter 5 individuals here corresponding to the minimum size of the core team. You would also use this section to include to put in the descriptions or the information about the members that fulfill the required clinical and computational expertise requirements that I described earlier. There are no drop-down menus here for the roles, so just use the description field at the bottom here to indicate what specific role this individual fulfills, or what expertise that they fulfill within the requirements. The third section I want to highlight is the application proposal. So the proposal is the meat of the application itself, and it is a document template that is found in the upload section. So we ask that you adhere strictly to the page limits, maintain all the formatting that is included in the template, and then convert it to a PDF when you're finished. This proposal will include sections for rationale, research plan, and all that good stuff. So I would just provide guidance on 3 short sections within the proposal. The first section is unique to the ReMIND-L proposal that you may not have seen in previous CIRM applications, and this is the project organization. There's a 2-page limit here, and there are 2 goals intended here. So one is to provide an overview of the organizational structure of the project to the reviewers. So a sort of bird's eye view, you can use like a graphical abstract type style thing for the reviewers to visualize all elements of your overall project quickly, the persons that are responsible for each element, and high level aims of each subcomponent, for example. The second thing that's important is to provide a detailed description of how the collaborative effort will be managed, including how the team plans to establish clear communication channels, delineate roles and responsibilities, and facilitate sharing of data and project updates in a timely manner. And that will be something that the reviewers would judge as well. The second part of the proposal is related to the diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. So in this section, the applicants should describe how the overall study and design has considered the influence of race, ethnicity, sex, gender, and age diversity, and explain how the project outcomes could extend or validate the applicability of your discoveries to underserved populations. And also describe the team's prior efforts or proposed plans for outreach, partnership, or educational activities to inform the development of DEI. We should note that the applicants should not in this section include mention of race, ethnicity, national origin, or gender in describing the applicant team personnel. And finally, the last section of the proposal I want to highlight is the data sharing overview. For those who are familiar with our programs, we know that that data sharing is something that we take very seriously. So in this section, we ask that you describe how the raw data, process data, and metadata produced by the project will be ultimately made available to the research community consistent with FAIR principles. The description should include the types of data that's produced, how data will be managed, what kinds of data will be shared, how they will be shared, where they will be shared, and if necessary, some justification for certain data that you will not be shared. Also a note that the awarded teams will be asked to complete a more detailed data sharing and management plan, and work during the award period. We'll work with our science officers for future alignment with potential data coordinating and management center and other data infrastructure. All right, so that's it for the proposal document. The next section is on the milestones and timeline. So there is a upload spreadsheet called milestones and timeline, Excel spreadsheet. This allows the opportunity for you to provide a timeline and a more granular view of all the milestones and their associated tasks, as well as sort of calling out the investigator that's responsible for overseeing specific milestones and specific activities. So there is also a sample tab that you can reference to see what we expect from this. That should be completed by the whole team. Just use short descriptors here, and with the proposal template document that I showed earlier, there is also a section called milestones. So you'll reproduce some of the milestones here, and you'll have that opportunity there to provide additional detail if that's needed. The next section is on budget. Let me just check on the time. So we strongly suggest that you complete the budget requirements in this following order. So the most important is the budget worksheet template that is part of the required upload templates. So finish that first, and then go back to the online application where under the funding basket, there are 3 sections: subcontracts, matching funds, and some funds calculator. And you can just complete each of that in turn. And then finally, there is a budget justification document template as well that you need to complete. So the budget worksheet is probably the most important here. We assume that each member of the core team will have a dedicated budget. Of course, we don't sort of stipulate how you make that delineation. And each PI and each co-I should complete their own tab we have a worksheet that gives you up to 8 co-investigators. And if you have a team that has more than 8 co-investigators, just let us know. One thing that's very important is to answer this question up here: is your co-I at the same institution as the PI? So for co-investigators that are not from the main applicant institution or the principal investigator institution, they will be considered as sub-awards to the main institution, and they will be asked to enter their total requested cost. So down here on line 39 into the subcontracts page. So the nice thing about this Excel spreadsheet as well is at the very end, when you've completed all your required tabs, the final tab here says combined. The combined tab will make all the necessary calculations, and you will just take those calculations and enter them into the online CIRM funds calculator page. Right, and going back to the online page. So the subcontracts page, you will enter any subcontracts, consultants, or service contracts that are paid directly from the main applicant institution. Just enter the full annual direct costs for each. And again, if any co-investigators are not from the main applicant institution, they will be entered as a subcontractor or sub-award to the main institution. And in this case, you just have to enter your total requested cost, row 39 from your tab, from the co-I's tab in the budget worksheet. That would take into account all the indirect costs and facilities costs that goes to the co-investigator. The online calculator will make all the necessary adjustments and feed into the CIRM funds calculator. And when you get to the CIRM funds calculator, that's where everything comes together. Some fields will be auto-populated, like from the subcontracts page. Otherwise, you will simply enter all the values that you see calculated from the combined tab of the budget worksheet into the corresponding field into the online CIRM's fund calculator. So that hopefully that was not too complicated. The last thing I want to touch on is the budget justification. This is just a Word document. There are 3 parts to it. So part A is a budget justification for each investigator of the core team with a limit of 3 pages per person. Part B is a separate DSMP budget justification for data sharing if that's not already covered in your individual investigator budgets. And then part C gives you then the opportunity to detail your matching funds, where they come from, the sources, and what they are going to be spent on, so the expenditure types. So you combine all these parts and upload as a single PDF document. All right, so that's it for the application process. And I'll hand it over to Haley for the review process.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'll walk you through briefly on the process after the applications are submitted. So this sort of outlines the progress of the applications after submission. First of all, the internal CIRM team will take a look at all the submissions and make sure it meets the eligibility criteria. This is where it's really important, if you have any questions about whether your project or the team that you've assembled meets the eligibility that Chan has outlined, that you contact the team ahead of submission to confirm. So we'll take a look at all the applications and make sure they're complete and basically ready for merit review. And then the applications will go to our grants working group, which is a group of 15 scientific reviewers and up to 7 board member reviewers as well. And they will assess whether their application is scientifically meritorious. This group will then give a grants working group recommendation that goes to our board application review subcommittee. That subcommittee will make the final funding decisions on all the applications. So a little bit more about the merit review itself. If you could go to the next slide, please. The grants working group will be evaluating all of the applications with these 6 key criteria. More detail is outlined in the RFA, so please read through it carefully. Each of these main questions have several sort of sub-questions that should be addressed within the body of the proposal and in the application as a whole. So the 5 criteria as outlined are: does the project uphold the necessary significance and potential for impact? Is the proposal innovative? Is the rationale sound? Is the project well designed, planned and designed? Is the project feasible? And does the project uphold principles of DEI? So those are the main key criteria that the grants working group will be using to evaluate and recommend applications. Once they've evaluated them, they will give a final score, and the scoring system is on the next slide. The scoring system is a tiered system of a 1, 2, or 3. A score of a 1 is a recommendation for funding. A 2 is an application may benefit from revision, but needs to have approval from the application review subcommittee for a resubmission. The 3 is the application is not recommended for funding at that time. So the scoring is based on a majority of the panel. If there's no majority, then the application is automatically designated a score of a 2. So next slide, please. The applications post-review, as I said, all of the recommendations from the grants working group with the scoring and all of the comments from the reviewers will go to the board for final funding. So automatically the tier 1s are recommended for funding, and then the tier 2 applications the applications that receive a score of 2 may have an opportunity to resubmit the application if there are basically 2 requirements that come to pass. One is that there is less than 6 applications that are funded on the first round. And secondly, the application review subcommittee of the board votes to allow resubmission. So those 2 criteria have to be met for a resubmission. And I think that pretty much summarizes the review process. If there's any questions, I'll be around for the Q&A. Back to you, Chan.
Great. Thanks, Haley. So as we close out here, I just want to give you a quick reminder of our landing page. So cirm.ca.gov/remind. You'll see all the resources and program updates here. And if you have any questions and want to schedule a consultation with the scientific programs team, you can email me at this email or discovery@cirm.ca.gov with the subject line ReMIND. And right now the applications are due March 5th at 2 p.m. So we can move on to the Q&A and take some of the live questions or...
Great, thanks, Chan. So I'll start with the live questions. Feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A and we'll get to them. So the first 2 questions we have are a bit overlapping. Can one of the COIs be outside of California? And do all of the investigators need to be at a California university or institution? So I'll pass that to April.
Sure, thanks. So for the requirement for a co-investigator or a PI, they do need to be an employee of a California-based organization or through a former contract be accountable for the conduct of the proposed project within a California-based organization. And you can find that on page 11 of the RFA if you need to reference it after this call.
Thanks, April. And then Rosa, did you have anything that you wanted to add for that one?
Actually, the subcontract part was what I was going to mention. Also, as you have seen, we have the matching funds portion, which has been designed or developed with the intention of leveraging outside research. So if you have a partner or research collaborator outside of California that is not interested in getting some funding through a subcontract and has some tools or resources that you want to use, you could use the matching funds in that case by, saying, I'm going to use this tool and this is how much they are bringing into the collaboration. And that's another way that you can collaborate and leverage from outside of California.
Great, thanks. And then the next question is, does this RFA support projects that involve primary fetal-derived cells? Chan, would you like to take that one?
Primary fetal-derived cells, I don't know if that necessarily fulfills the stem cell or progenitor requirements.
I can take one if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was looking at that question. So progenitor cells could be within the stem cell definition that we have at CIRM. And primary fetal cells, they can contain stem cells. So if it has stem cells, but then another thing is if you're going to do genetic research on those cells, if you're going to modify them, that could be how it could count. But it depends on what you are thinking of doing. And I think probably this is best for the consultation with our team. Do you agree, Chan?
For sure, yep.
Okay, thank you. So those were our live questions. So attendees, please submit your questions in the chat. We'll start going through some of the questions that were submitted with registration. So the first one that we'll answer is the requirement to include genetic engineering inflexible?
Yeah, I think I can take that. I kind of went through the project eligibility requirements pretty extensively earlier. So the requirement for genetic research falls under basket 2 of the project eligibility requirements. So the wording of that specifically says you must include in your proposal studies that use stem cell or genetic research as a central approach or hypothesis. So as long as you can fulfill that requirement, that's enough. So it's stem cell or genetic research, and the genetic research here in the eligibility requirements specifically relates to genetic engineering, modification of genomic sequences, or the introduction of nucleic acids. So it is not inflexible. There is a lot of leeway where you can you can use stem cell models without using any genetic engineering, for example. So yeah, so just to look at that language carefully.
Okay, and then the next question, is there a maximum number of applications that can be funded? This is a live question. I saw that 6 was the target, but I was not clear if you could support more than that.
I'll take that one, Chen. The board approved up to 6 awards, and it approved a certain budget, a very specific budget. So all what we can fund is what the board has approved. Of course, the board, if they say that there are 10 eligible tier 1, it's up to their prerogative to decide that they want to add it. But for now, that's all what we have. And I think that's what the board would be agreeing to fund. Now, if one situation could be that we have 7 and it's less than the budget, the total budget that was requested, that you all came under the budget, the maximum budget, and that could be a consideration. If we can get more bang for the buck, that could be something that could happen.
Okay, and then a similar question, related question that we had from the pre-registration questions was, will this opportunity recur? I think Rosa, you can take that one as well.
Sorry, what was the question?
Will this opportunity recur? It was a pre-registration question.
This is a pilot, and it is also up to the board's decision. So the outcomes of this program will be evaluated as we go. And as you know, we will have a research, a ReMIND conference as well. So all this will be informing the board as to the outcomes and what we are getting out of the program and whether we are going to be repeating it. Our hope is that there will be more, but for now we have this one.
Okay, the next question is a live question. Do the 5 PIs need to be from different institutions?
Yeah, I can take that. No, there's no expectation. The 5 members of the core team, the minimum 5 members of the core team need to be from California institutions. So they could be from any California institution. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so the next question is, what do you foresee as the contributions of the affiliated clinical COI?
So let me just untangle the wording of this question first. There is a team member eligibility a requirement that you have 1 member with a relevant clinical expertise. As I said earlier, that member does not need to be member of the core team, so it does not also need to be a COI. They could be any key personnel. So that's one clarification. The reason we're requiring that clinical expertise within the team again is to ensure that there is visibility on the translatability of the project outcomes, for the future, and to make sure that you are able to draw on patient-centered groups, patient-derived resources and data and partnerships. And as well as an understanding of the existing bottlenecks and the existing therapies that are available out there, and how you can make a difference with your projects. So that's where that comes in. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, so another pre-registration question was, what is the suitability of a joint academic biotech research collaboration with a therapeutic focus? Chan, did you want to take that one?
It is possible. I think as long as you fulfill all the requirements that we're stipulating here, so the focus on basic biology, basic discovery of the mechanisms underlying neuropsychiatric disorders, this award is open to both non-profit or for-profit companies. So you can compose your team in any way you see fit. And part of the expected outcomes is to identify new targets and new therapeutic hypotheses and new biomarkers. So that could be of interest to industry partners as well. But again, also this is an opportunity that is not suited to support more translational activities. So development candidate selection, optimization, it will not be supported with this award. So I hope that clarifies it.
One way we could think about this is, obviously biotech, pharma, they have, they know what the bottlenecks are. They have programs in the therapeutic areas, and they come up with bottlenecks, and they have resources. Say they might have samples, might have, the access to the type of resources that could be leveraged by an academic. Now that's going to have to be a sharing of the IP there. So that's something that you will need to work out if you're interested, right, with the academic partner. But obviously that's of interest. That's what will help move the needle forward. So yes.
Okay, thanks. And then we have another question asking who that would like to confirm that a non-California personnel can be a subcontractor but not a COI.
I can start that, and then April, you can jump in if you want to add anything to this. So that's correct. A non-California personnel cannot be a COI. They can be a subcontractor and receive some funds with the stipulation that the main PI is the one directing the project to the subcontractor, and the main PI retains independent publication and IP rights. So the subcontractor cannot retain independent IP or publication rights if they are outside of California. Yeah, I think that covers it for subcontractors.
Okay, thanks. And then the next question is, do we use the CIRM category A and B indirects for each subaward at different California institutions in the budget worksheet template?
I think the short answer is yes. But yeah,
I can
think
add
that's
on to that.
yeah. Go ahead, April.
So the category A and B, if it's for a subcontract, that subcontractor would enter in their federally negotiated rates, and then the PI would enter in their own federally negotiated rates if they're at different institutions. And that's the rate that CIRM would apply to the award, the rate that the PI is putting for their A and B costs.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question is, my understanding is that there will be an RFA forthcoming in the near future for neuropsychiatric diseases that does not entail a large team, like a program project, which can take a number of months to organize, but rather can emanate from a single lab or smaller group of labs. Is that true? I believe
The answer
about
is
ReMIND-L.
yes, but Chan, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you paid attention to the overall program concept when this program was approved by the board, there were two elements to it, the ReMIND-L, as well as this program called ReMIND-X, which is to support more exploratory, high-risk, high-impact projects. The ReMIND-X, we don't have a firm date for the release of the RFA yet, but it should come out expected at the end of the year, right, Rosa?
Yeah, in the second half, the budget for this will go to the board in June, and it should be coming up probably within a month or two of the D0 PA. Also,
Yeah.
just as a reminder, we just had modifications, amendments to the D0. There is a higher budget now. Check out our website of the discovery opportunities, because there's a link to the changes that we have for D0 and D2, and you can always apply there as well. It does not preclude you from applying within neuropsychiatric or other diseases.
I actually had a list of the deadlines that are coming up. So ReMIND-X is exploratory multidisciplinary projects that will also require at least 2 to 3 PIs to work together, and the RFA will be expected at the end of the year. And of course, we have our pillar programs, DIS0 and DIS2, with the funding deadlines, the application deadlines listed here.
Okay, thanks. And then the next question is the main goal of this initiative to gain some direct understanding about neuropsychiatric disorders, or can technological development that can lead to new and optimized methods that can indirectly lead to understanding also a valid goal for these proposals?
Yeah, go ahead, Rosa.
No, go ahead, Chan.
Yeah, I think technology development could be a sub goal of the project. This is a very large award, and we expect that there will be multiple components to it. The overall project should be multifaceted and should sort of reflect the ambition of an award of this size. So if you have a proposal that is all technology development, it's going to be a little hard for reviewers to digest technically. So within our 4 expected outcomes, one of the outcomes is address a major bottleneck in the study of neuropsychiatric diseases. So that's definitely something that you can put into your overall project. I would suggest not to just do technology development, but definitely part of it could be. But yeah, I think
technological development, it's more for foundation, if that's all what you want to do. I think that we need to, and you said it very well, it needs to be an ambitious that correlates with the budget. So we want a multi-prong, and this could be one of the prongs, but it cannot be the only one. And again, just talk to us.
Okay, the next question is if the non-California, it's a follow-up question, I believe. It's if the non-California collaborator is not listed as a COI, but a subcontract, is there a limit for the budget percentage for the non-California subcontract?
I would need to check and dive a little deeper if there's any stipulation regarding a cap on that, before I give a definitive answer. So that's something that we can do a follow-up on. Unless Chan, you happen to know.
Yeah, I think technically there isn't a limit, but this
I'm
is
at 99.99% that it's not a limit, but that 0.001% that it might be. I just would like to double check, but
yeah, I think that would be a very unusual case. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're caught up on the live questions again.
I think we could do maybe 1 or 2 more questions after
Okay,
4 minutes
great.
left.
Yeah, we have some that were submitted with pre-registration. And as a reminder, we'll have the webinar posted online as well as the an FAQ Q&A posted as document as well. We've had a few questions came in asking whether they can use patient-derived iPSCs and organoids or studies of iPSCs from patients would be supported.
Yes, that would be supported. That's clearly listed as one of the activities that some would support, including limited derivation of new lines and then using patient-derived lines or other lines to model disease, neuropsychiatric disease. That's definitely something we're looking for.
Okay, and then we had a few other questions asking about whether non-psychiatric disorders that have neuropsychiatric symptoms, such as Alzheimer's, would fit under ReMIND-L.
Yeah, I think I addressed it earlier, but ReMIND-L and this year it's really focused on understanding neuropsychiatric diseases and the underlying biology of these diseases. So so that's number one. If you are looking to study neurodegeneration or other CNS indications, and the claim is, or the pitch would be that, you know, these indications also, these diseases also have a neuropsychiatric component. I'm afraid that's not going to fly for us. But if you're seeking to understand neuropsychiatric disease mechanisms in the context of some of these other indications, perhaps not as a standalone and perhaps part of a wider project, that could be eligible. But we do really highly recommend that you talk to us first before submitting your proposal if you have an application of that sort.
Okay, and then I think that's it for the questions. So would you like to close everything out, Chan?
Great, I think that's it. Thanks for attending, everyone. And have a good day. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.